With 3 episodes remaining in the Game of Thrones, many people are wondering who, if anyone, will sit on the Iron Throne at the end of the series. As an experiment, I have decided to use the hero's journey as a guide to determine the most likely outcome. Nothing is guaranteed, of course, but George R.R. Martin truly loves mythology, and it seems fitting that the character who best fits the hero's journey will end up as ruler of Westeros. The hero's journey is a type of pattern that most mythology follows. It was first studied by an anthropologist named Edward Burnett Tyler in 1871, and since then has had many other scholars that ascribe to its theory. I don't want to get too bogged down in the particular details of the hero's journey, since the number of steps in it vary and can include anywhere from 8 to 17 steps. I'm currently reading a book which claims to have identified as many as 195 steps on the journey, albeit many of them are related to one another. The two characters who best embody the hero's journey are the two that most people expect, Jon Snow and Daenerys Targaryen. For this video I will focus on Daenerys and perhaps do a breakdown of Jon Snow in another video since they both follow the journey, but each has their own unique path along its arc. Dany, well, she really hits the ground running. She was the outcome of relatively miraculous birth. She was born during a storm that was so bad it earned her the nickname Stormborn, and her mother died during childbirth. Almost immediately she was whisked across the narrow sea as a child to escape the clutches of Robert Baratheon at the end of Robert's rebellion. She goes from a princess of the Seven Kingdoms to an exile in a strange land. By the time she is of age, her brother is trying to marry her off to what can only be considered a barbarian. She has reached an absolute low point. After her first meeting with Drogo, she tells her brother, "I cannot marry that man," which marks the specific moment in the hero's journey, refusing the call to adventure. Now, one has to consider the reasons for this refusal. It wasn't that she was necessarily comfortable with her life in exile or terrified of leaving the free cities, but more likely she was afraid of this extremely large and brutish man, Khal Drogo. And rightfully so, since he's a relatively imposing and scary presence. Eventually, she is bullied into the marriage by Viserys and must go on the so-called adventure. During her marriage ceremony, she is provided 3 dragon eggs by Illyrio, which will later come to hatch into 3 magical dragons. This too marks a moment on the hero's journey in which the hero is provided a type of boon or supernatural aid. And the number 3 is a unique and significant one in the most mythology. For example, in the Holy Bible, the number 3 is attached to many significant events or characters. There is the Holy Trinity. Peter denies Jesus 3 times, and Jesus is visited by 3 wise men when he is born. Shortly after this gift-giving ceremony, Dany is taken away by Khal Drogo for their wedding night, and this could potentially mark what is called crossing the threshold. In this part of the journey, the hero moves into a dangerous place and faces many trials. No one can question that Dany faces many trials in the early part of her marriage with Drogo. It's quite a dark chapter of her life that includes what can only be considered nightly rapes. And it is here that Dany begins a sort of metamorphosis into the character we know today. Shortly after this, she meets Doreah, the woman who teaches her how to seduce Drogo. This marks the meeting with the goddess, a character that imbues some item or knowledge to the hero to help them on their journey. She eventually turns the tables of power on Drogo, and in the end grows to love him while establishing herself as a powerful queen. Here marks the beginning of the second act of the hero's journey, the Road of Trials. It's no coincidence that Dany is literally traveling on roads throughout her adventure across Essos during this period, while she simultaneously confronts many different tests. She must eat an entire horse heart to prove she carries a powerful khal inside her. With the help of Jorah Mormont, she escapes being poisoned. And finally, she has the ultimate confrontation with her brother, and he is killed by Khal Drogo. 3 tests. The confrontation with Viserys and his death also marks another part of the hero's journey, the atonement with the father. In this period, the hero overcomes a father figure that has life and death power over them. Dany also meets Mirri Maz Duur, the Lazarean priestess, who represents temptation. Mirri states she can heal Drogo's minor cut. Dany, while fully aware this woman could be a threat, falls to this temptation. Despite this aid, Drogo starts to die, likely poisoned by the priestess. Mirri Maz Duur then offers to bring Drogo back to life, and Dany again accepts this temptation. Ultimately, Dany loses everything: her husband, her unborn child, and her kingdom. 3 very important things to her. At this point, Daenerys reaches an hypothesis. She understands the world is unforgiving, and she must be more ruthless and less trusting. She also surmises that she is a true dragon, and cannot be harmed by flame. She places Khal Drogo, Mirri Maz Duur, and the dragon eggs onto a funeral pyre and sets them alight. Dany then walks into the flames, sure she will not be harmed. In the end, she gains 3 young dragons, better known as the Ultimate Boon, which in the hero's journey is akin to immortality. And now begins the 3rd act of the hero's journey, the return. This act is first marked by a refusal to return to where the adventure began. During the show, when Dany is rampaging around Slaver's Bay, she is offered ships and gold to just go back to Westeros and fight her war, but she refuses, instead remaining focused on her goal to free the slaves of Essos. This lingering in Slaver's Bay puts her in great danger, and at one point an uprising in the fighting pits by the Sons of the Harpy almost leads to her death, but she is carried away on the back of her dragon, Drogon. Yet again, she hits a mark on the hero's journey, known as the Magic Flight, in which the hero must escape from danger with the ultimate boon. Dany again faces many trials after this moment. She is captured by the Khals, who are threatening to gang rape her, and worse. She is rescued with the help of Jorah Mormont. This is called the Rescue from Without in the hero's journey, although Dany does most of the heavy lifting by burning all the Khals of Essos alive. Finally, Dany is ready to return to Westeros, where her journey began, and during this time in the journey, it is the hero's job to keep sight of the things they have learned, and somehow figure out a way to share this wisdom with others. While in Westeros, she has been using some of the lessons she learned to advance her cause. She uses ruthlessness and fear against the Lannister armies. She uses the counsel of her trusted advisors to guide her in a land that she is unfamiliar with. And she uses love and seduction to bring the King of the North under her rule. The final steps of the hero's journey are what I think are the most obvious signs that Dany will rule in the end. They have not come to pass yet in the show, but if they do, it would complete the entire arc. The first is that the hero becomes what is known as the Master of Two Worlds. If Dany ends up ruling Westeros, she will be queen of both the Seven Kingdoms as well as the only Khaleesi, and the queen of Meereen, Yunkai, Astapor, and Volantis. She will literally be the master of the two worlds which she has been a part of. The final step on the journey is called the freedom to live. At this point, the hero is free from the fear of death, and therefore has the freedom to live. With no one to threaten her rule, Dany can now sit back and relax, her journey complete, her past a simple memory, and her future unplanned. Now, some will note that Dany has had visions in the past that indicate she may not sit on the Iron Throne. However, these are up for interpretation. Her vision included a scene of the Iron Throne covered in snow in a destroyed Red Keep. She approaches the throne, almost within reach, but turns away. Some posit this means she will not rule Westeros. However, one has to consider when she had this vision and what has happened since. The throne was easily within her grasp, but she seems to have a revelation that even touching the throne under the circumstances is not the right thing to do, and she turns away. Immediately after this, she encounters Drogo and her unborn son in what can only be the afterlife, and he implores her to stay, but she again refuses this. Perhaps in hindsight, the scene in the throne room is an indicator that Dany won't simply just seize it immediately, and that she needs to deal with a supernatural force and refute it before she can get on with the business of ruling. The story bears out this explanation as Dany puts a halt to her conquest of Westeros to help defend against the Night King. Or maybe the fact that the Red Keep is destroyed and no one is sitting on the Iron Throne is an indication that Dany breaks the wheel as she has been hoping to do for many years, and she will end up ruling from a different seat of power. Or it could just simply mean that she will not rule Westeros, and Jon Snow, better known as Aegon Targaryen, will. We'll see what is unveiled in the next 3 episodes. Thanks for watching.